gushing wells at risk of going undrilled.
Driver of Canada's national economy, of course, but is there enough?
Airborne contaminants from oil sands operations may be spreading to lakes as far as 100 kilometers away.
And with that, we're back again. Welcome to Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet. It's Tuesday, November 20th, 2012.
We've got a lot of really good reasons to smile because it's Mock Harper Tuesday as opposed to Mock Harper Monday.
I will be mocking the mainstream press as well because they don't cover the stuff they should be.
So generally, this is an irreverent look and a look at the news that lamestream media is scared to talk about. This is Radio Free Canada. Let's get the legal portion out of the way. Everything you're about to hear is our opinion and only our opinion. Please don't get too bent out of shape by it.
And everything we say is protected under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms until Mr. Harper turns that into toilet paper.
Of course, we're going to be presenting media as defined by international fair usage copyright law. So, if you're an in-the-box thinker...
If you think Walmart should continue to make profits from slave wages...
If you think that banks should continue not paying income tax...
If you think McDonald's is a restaurant...
Or you think CHBC is the news, then stop listening now. Please stop listening. Don't get on our website and say that we suck. We realize that's your opinion. Deal with it. This is Freedom of Speech and a Freedom of Speech Act, where we're going to be talking about everything from around the world, from sustainable communities all the way up to solutions for homelessness, and of course the way that we want to create intellectual gallows, Mock Stephen Harper down the line, and make sure that everybody gets a good show.
However, we got to take our first shot at the Alberta oil sands, and here's something to make you smile.
Check it out.
Are your natural resources not attracting the attention they once did? Are your gushing wells at risk of going undrilled? If you think time is running out, you're probably right.
It's the same situation as the leftover single women. It will be the same for the oil sands. They will be outdated, just like unmarried single women.
Don't let them say that about you. Call now if your natural resources are exhibiting the following symptoms.
Shrewishness, old maidery, spinsterism, fallow pipeline tubes.
Asian businessmen are standing by to take your call and fulfill your wildest economic fantasies. Dial 1-866-770-6896.
Because unextracted oil sands are like women without children. Inert, unprofitable, devoid of purpose.
You can't be too picky, Canada. There are always younger, more exotic nations where they can get what they need. That number again is 1-866-770-6896. Because there's just no profit in collecting cats.
That's the way that we start off the show today. It is awesome to be back again. Awesome to be at work after an impromptu long weekend.
I really enjoyed my time off putting this show together today.
You know, it's great working around here because we've got innovations galore. We've got actual things that will solve things out there. We're not just shock radio. We're not less like the news that just carries on and on about the latest car accident.
No, we actually want to present municipal sustainability projects. We want to talk about solutions to this crap hole that we're in.
On the screen right now, you are seeing, and for those of you on YouTube, you are seeing municipal sustainability. And that's one of the major projects that we are promoting right now, right around the world via the internet. And we would like to thank our network partners for joining us and rebroadcasting us where we're not allowed to be rebroadcast. Okay, coming up on the show and the media that you're going to be getting, we're going to be talking about the oil sands, the elephant in the room on that one.
That's true. We're also going to be talking about the fact that Alberta seems to be going into debt.
And to debt, which kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. We're going to be talking about Canadian mines around the world and legalization of pot, some of the waves that one's creating.
Also, we're going to be talking about how Canada's being slammed for its human rights violations at the UN and Amnesty International.
And of course, we're going to be taking both sides of the story in Gaza. That's all coming up with media and information with Radio Free Canada. Remember, there is journalism out there. You're not going to find it in lamestream media. You are going to find it with us. So stay tuned. Check out our other videos. Check out our Facebook wall and keep informed. Remember, we're not going to make commercials saying you can trust us or we bring you all the news, because you're a human, you're intelligent, and you can see through that BS.
That's right. So our first story today is going to be talking about the fact that costs of producing from the oil sands are soaring, and investors are starting to get a little bit worried.
Man, they've got more to worry about than that with the protests going on around the world, but let's get informed. Let's run this one.
Oil is a major driver of Canada's national economy, of course, but is there enough investment to develop the oil sands in the future? It's always controversial. Controversy is raging over the proposed takeover of the Alberta-based oil producer Nexen by the Chinese state-owned company CNOOC. CBC's Greg Weston is here. He's uncovered some exclusive new documents that shed light on some trends as the government decides whether to allow or reject a $15 billion takeover deal. Greg, what exactly do you have in these new documents?
This is a memorandum. It's about 8 pages long. It was written by the Assistant Deputy Minister, very high-ranking official at the Department of Natural Resources, and it is titled Trends Impacting Investment in Canada's Oil Sands. What it is, the bottom line to this one, Evan, is it says that the soaring costs of developing the oil sands are driving away investments and could put the brakes on the entire industry. Now, this is something that affects all Canadians. It's no secret that the oil sands are a major driver of our economy, tens of thousands of jobs associated directly, indirectly. So if something goes south with the oil sands, we've got a real problem on our hands. Here's what this particular official in his briefing note had to say. And he says, although current crude prices promote oil sands development, ever-increasing capital and operating costs could make this price insufficient to support oil sands development at forecast levels. So what this means is that at today's oil prices, if costs keep going and oil prices don't suddenly go through the roof, we've got a real problem nationally on our hands with attracting investment there.
Attracting investment and ongoing development there. How does this affect, people are trying to understand this net benefit test on foreign investment regarding it, seeing it through the lens of this Nexen CNOOC deal. Could this impact the government's decision on that?
Well, this is probably the most powerful argument in favor of approving the CNOOC Nexen deal that you could have. Simply put, if the rising costs are chasing investment away, here the Chinese don't seem to really care that much about that happening. They're offering a huge premium on the share price of this company. They obviously want to get it, and they are lining up at the door to invest. And the bottom line to what this is saying is, really asking the question, can Canada pick and choose its investors in the oil sands? And of course, at the same time that this is happening, because of this increase in prices, it means lower profits. Lower profits mean lower share prices, means a whole group of oil sands companies are now really ripe for the picking. And of course, this is what's confronting the government more than anything else, is not just CNOOC buying Nexen, but what's next.
Right, so the horizon here, it's fascinating, which is one, you need foreign investment. It's an investor's market because otherwise you can't develop the oil sands. But B, if there's depressed share prices, the person with the most money, or the company with the most money, or the country with the most money, really may begin to have undue influence in the oil sands. So this is raising all sorts. So I don't know which way this cuts. It kind of cuts both ways for the opposition and for the government on this deal.
Yeah, it does. This is really one of the most difficult dilemmas that any government in recent memory has found itself in. There really is no easy way out of this. We're still waiting, of course, not only for the decision on this deal, but the government is promising a framework for all takeovers, and that is intended specifically to address that problem. Not just whether China can buy Nexen, but can China then buy? It could afford the whole oil sands. I had a former executive from the oil patch say to me yesterday, Greg, don't make any mistake about this. They have the funds. They could go in and take control of the whole thing if they want to. So something that the government is mindful of.
All right, Greg Weston with new memos that shed light on what exactly is going into this controversial decision many people are talking about. Thanks for that. CBC's Greg Weston here with those new documents.
Okay, so
it's kind of a two-headed snake.
Okay, yeah, okay. You get so. I mean, is that a really rounded out view?
While on one hand, they're worried about the net benefit of China invests in Canada.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they want investment in the oil sands.
And they're not talking about shutting down the oil sands or getting it into a more reasonable ecological system. And, of course, the elephant being in the room, they're pushing for this oil sands development when they're capping wells in Alaska.
Exactly. But, they're worried about having enough investment input into the oil sands because of the cost of extracting the fuel from the bitumen.
Yeah. So, often in power and politics, I'm caught with that. Well, they're just trying to distract us again. They're just trying to distract us with the details of the thing. They're not focusing on the whole story, the impact on the government, the long-term health benefits to the local nations around there.
The impact on the whole environment. I mean, we all have to breathe the air and drink the water.
Yeah. The overburden. If you ever want to see nonsense, look at Enbridge's or the oil sands development talking about overburden. That is forest and trees that are over top of the oil sands, so they have to strip mine.
Yes. Oh, yes. We can eat oil. No, wait a minute. We can't.
Let's get a rounded out look at this one. NDTV got one, and
apparently the pollution is a little more widespread from the oil sands than we thought.
Okay, check it out.
New research from Environment Canada about the oil sands shows evidence about more widespread pollution than previously thought. Airborne contaminants from oil sands operations may be spreading to lakes as far as 100 kilometers away. Studies of the chemicals on lake sediments found levels at least 20 times higher than earlier readings done decades ago. The full findings of the study were presented Wednesday at an international toxicology conference in the United States.
So they know about this November 15, okay? Where is major media on this? I mean, they're all focused about, remember we had the reality show?
Well, yes.
Okay, down in the States. And then this toxicology report comes out 100 miles away.
And I have to get it from Chinese TV?
Wait a second. Let's get on the CBC right now. And let's take a look.
Of course, they were talking about the development costs that are going up.
Yeah. Okay. So development cost, environmental impact. Okay. Not really taking a look at the entire story on power and politics. I think that they missed out quite a bit on that one. On there, we have Troy L. on Facebook was talking about this on our Facebook wall in Radio Free Canada.
Okay.
And he raised some really good points, but I want you to go on there and start questioning. Also, I want you to go on Facebook on Radio Free Canada and take a look at some of the conservative trolls that we have there.
The ones that say, what do you want to do, turn the oil sands off right now?
Yeah.
No, we'd like to transition off of fossil fuels, though.
How about that? How about getting off of fossil fuels? We were just attending a conference in Canada, or in Kelowna, about fossil fuels and action against. So there was about 50 people gathered together to protest or to start arranging protests. And there was a guy who stood up and said, hey, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And we're like, no, we just don't want the cake.
Yeah, we just don't want the cake.
Far be it from me to point out any truth or reality.
Well, all these development costs that are being shut off from the oil sands, why aren't those going into green energy technology?
Well, that would make sense, don't you know? Coming up on the show, we've got an excellent one for you. Tune in to everything that's happening and question what we're talking about. We're not here just to spoon feed you nonsense. Stay tuned. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet. You're listening to Radio Free Canada.